Okay, we're playing a whole bunch on this path together today. Parasites. Okay, I know there's going to be lots of questions, and I have a few questions already. I would ask that you would put those questions in the chat immediately, and I'm just going to buzz through them as best I can, okay? Because we want everybody off this by 12:55. So that, hi, everybody. Okay, let's do this. Parasites, what are they? Okay, in the physical world, I come from this place where parasites either kill you in 2 weeks or you kill them in 2 weeks. Okay, so we're not talking about everything being a parasite. But we are talking about all those things that are parasitic, right? So does that make them a parasite? I guess so. But technically, it's a parasite if it kills you in 2 weeks or you kill it in 2 weeks, like Ebola. That's what we genuinely call a parasite. But when we talk about parasitic pieces, we're talking about mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical, right? And all of those can either be physical or energetic. Parasites, parasitic. What is a parasite? A parasite is something that lives off of a host. Now, hopefully the parasite doesn't get too carried away and end up killing the host. But we've seen that happen, haven't we? We've seen where parasitic bugs, parasitic things have gotten so carried away that they kill the host and then they die because of it. So there's a whole bunch of energy in trying to keep balance with parasitic energies. Now, I have my whole life looked for golden threads and looked for ways to come back to nature. My whole life. There's a reason that I worked with the medical medium information for so long, because I thought, one, the food brought me back to nature because it was fruits and vegetables. Like, how much closer can you get to nature than that? Right? It caused me to come even further back to nature where I didn't really need those fruits and vegetables anymore, because they were my medicine until I didn't need that medicine anymore. So it really took this whole thing for an unhijacking loop. That being said, there's another piece to that. Food as medicine. There's a lot of fruits and vegetables that are actually more fruits than vegetables, but a lot of fruits that are antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal, anti-parasitic stuff. Anti-parasite. So one of my favorites for, okay, let's get into it. The physical aspect, worms. Ew. But you know what? They're a pretty natural part of nature. Worms are out in nature. They're doing their thing out there in the dirt. They're actually helping our plants because they break down things in the dirt. Guess what? They do a little bit of that in our physical bodies, but our physical bodies don't really need to have those worms. But are they parasitic? Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have to deal with those, don't we? We can't let those get out of balance. What works? Dates. Dates are one of my favorite foods for getting rid of worms that are parasitic in the physical body. Another thing, papaya seeds. Now, I wouldn't recommend eating a ton of papaya seeds all at once, but papaya seeds can be very much a dewormer, anti-parasitic, if you want to go that direction. Now, what about the rest of the body? Because we're not just talking about worms, are we? We're talking about viruses and bacteria. My favorite herb of all time is cat's claw. Why? Because it has a regulating ability in the body and it doesn't kill the host in order to get rid of the parasitic aspects of those physical things. So viruses and bacteria, what good is it to kill the virus and bacteria if you're going to kill the host too with what you're taking? So you have to check in to see what's absolutely right for you. I know lots of people that have used ivermectin or chlorine dioxide or just the regular deworming stuff at the at the pharmacy or whatever. Those are all beneficial to get rid of those, but they harm the host to some degree. So can you clean up from that? Absolutely. The body can repair, the body can get rid of all those things. But what can you use that's going to get rid of the parasitic aspect of things without harming the host? That's always what I'm looking for. And so I say, I state grace and ease as much as possible. But guess what? Apples are anti-parasitic. Plums, cherries, watermelon is a little bit in that it helps the body cleanse, and all that liquid that you get in watermelon, Sylvia, is really valuable. It's a cleanse all on its own, which is going to allow the body to look after the parasitic aspects. But it doesn't have strong properties like apples and cherries, like papaya seeds, but it's still going to be cleansing, right? It's a matter of knowing that all of those nectarines, figs, there's so many herbs, lemon balm,
Apricots.
apricots. Yeah, absolutely. They're not quite as strong as some of the other ones, but just about all the fruits have a little bit of an anti-parasitic, antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal, all of that. Now, here's the thing though, because we don't just have physical parasites, do we? We have mental parasites. They didn't come from us, but they're there, aren't they? Think about how much of our lives have been hijacked, and that has to do with mental parasitic pieces. We've even got biomechanical parasitic pieces now. Have you ever heard of Morgellons? Biomechanical. The things that come in the lovely, those robotizations, those are biomechanical as well. What about something like MK Ultra? Have you heard of MK Ultra? Okay, so that is a form of parasite as well. So we've got all these parasitic pieces, but what's the key factor underneath? What's the key factor? Victim. So there's an energy that we play with that has been projected to us that brings up the victim in us, that allows for those energies to thrive. So it might be dragon gates. And I love that Jacqueline's going to address that today. But we just talked about it in the earlier creating space call, where can you close those dragon gates if there's a whole bunch in the way? I don't even know what closing the dragon gates is yet. I'm letting it sit in, but I just keep thinking, there's all of this victim mentality that's piled up, that's accumulated, that's in the way of, can I even get the gates closed? So I'm putting into play here just the perception that if we do not believe the thoughts that tell us that we're victims, have we diminished the way that parasitic energies, parasitic viruses, parasitic physicalities can affect us? I would tend to say yes. Okay, only in my own personal experiences. And you have to prove it to yourself. But if I think about individuals, like, how is it that Epstein-Barr virus can be present in everyone's physical body, and some people end up with cancer from it and some people don't? Well, there's a whole bunch of other factors in that. Parasites live off certain things. So some people's toxicity levels can be really high, and an Epstein-Barr virus can be included. And then all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of cells that are rogue that we call cancer. And the next person going to have a higher level of Epstein-Barr and they can have a higher level of toxicity, and they don't show up with cancer. So what are the other pieces involved? Well, I would say fear would be one, because wouldn't viruses feed off of that energy energetically? Fear is a toxic emotion that accumulates in the body. And then when we bring in the fear of death, we've got ultimate victimhood happening. And that also can be energy, can feed those parasitic qualities or those parasitic physicalities or those parasitic mental parasites. So that fear of death and keeping this physical body alive could actually be contributing to the level of mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual viral parasitic aspects that we are dealing with. So can you use ivermectin? Absolutely. You know, you're going to want to look at that energy though, because what other things do we have in our lives that are parasitic? Symptoms, systems. Systems are parasitic. So if you look at any of the systems that we have in this modern day, you're going to find that they need a certain amount of individuals to participate in order to keep that system alive. So there's a lot of fear. You know, think about it, the education system, kids are taught, well, if you don't get an education, you can't, then you won't be successful. So fear. The system has no choice but to create fear in order to keep enough individuals participating so that it can succeed. So our systems are also parasitic. And then if you close your eyes right now or leave them open, whichever is comfortable for you, can you think of the individuals in your life that are parasitic? All they do is take, 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 take. They just take, take, take. Friends, parents, children, even partners. Government officials, oh yeah, we're going to raise your taxes again and again and again. Wow, we've got system and we've got individual involved, right? But it's about an energy. I have watched, intuitively, I test for clients to see where they're at. And I'm very fortunate to be intuitive in that I can connect with individuals and see where things are to some degree. I look for as many ways as I can to share with individuals what I'm picking up on, because what the heck is the information to me if I can't give it back to the individual and they can benefit from it? I have had individuals that drop the fear of death, the victim mentality aspect, to the point where they didn't really have to do any of this other physical stuff to get rid of the parasitic, biological parasitic pieces inside. And I've watched them do the exact same thing with the mental parasitic aspects as well. So I've watched the mental parasitic pieces and I've watched the physical parasitic pieces drop down because an individual dives deep and they go into their fear of death, their victim mentality, their life is getting me versus life is for me kind of attitude. And it makes a huge difference as to how easy it is for them to get rid of the parasitic piece. So they're really focusing on the gold frequency. And the gold frequency, the more it's focused on, the more it expands, the more it allows for the rest of these parasitic pieces to not really access us. Maybe that's what is closing the dragon gates. I don't know. I don't know what Jacqueline means by that yet. But if I'm looking at this and I'm dropping the mental energies that feed these parasitic individuals, which is fear-based. And if we track it all back, what we do is get from where we are, recognizing that all of our fears lead back to the death of this physical body. Who started that? Where did that even come from? Where did it even come from? The death of the physical body being something to fear. But if we address that, then these other pieces, they can't get us the same way. They can't insert themselves the same way. Okay. So do we still look after the physical pieces? Yes, I do anyway, but I don't come from fear in doing it. I come from, okay, I just ate all this fresh stuff out of the garden. I probably have worms in my digestive system. So what am I going to do? Okay, well, a very simple cleanse is for a few days. I'm going to eat just fruits, as many fruits as I want. I might do watermelon cleanses, and then I might eat dates on top of that because dates are going to get rid of worms. Or I might do some papaya seeds in order to get rid of worms. Now, physiologically, biologically, worms have many cycles. So they'll go through cycles, and it's generally a 21-day cycle. So I might do that a few times over a 21-day period. Guess what I'm going to do the other rest of the time? I'm going to be taking cat's claw. I'm going to do an alcohol-free tincture, and I'm going to do 1 to 2 dropperfuls a couple times a day. Guess what? It gets rid of herpetic viruses, herpetic bacteria, worms, and it has an incredible energy of gold. So I'm going to be boosting that also to affect my energetics. It's not too tough. It doesn't taste good, just so you know. But cat's claw is my favorite herb for getting rid of all of it. Fungus, all of those parasitic, biological parasitic pieces. Now, if it's Morgellons or it's the biomechanical pieces, I'm still going to use cat's claw, but I have to change this whole vibration in order to deal with the biomechanical piece. I do. I can't just do it in 21 days, maybe, but I can put it in the purification space. I can pass it to God. I can raise this vibration in everything that I do or everything that I bring in. Food is just an energy. It's just a delivery system for energy. So I might use the food energies to shift the vibration of this whole thing so that I'm not a good host to parasitic pieces. Guess what? If you have parasitic people in your life, they'll move away pretty quickly when you start like cleaning up your vibration. They don't want anything to do with you. And you know what? As you clean up your vibration, you're going to speak to it more. Okay, you're going to say, I have a healthy boundary that says this is not right for me right now. And we go back to the relationship intensive. I know not all of you have attended all of those things, but in the relationship intensive, we talked about aligned relationship. If you feel yes, then it's a yes outwardly. If you feel no, and say no, it's still a yes outwardly because you're being honest and you're giving them opportunity to check it out somewhere else. So again, if you're in right alignment, then that energy is going to show up and you're not going to be available for parasitic pieces the same way or parasitic people. I always say that even to individuals in partnership, if you get in right alignment, you don't have to kick anybody out. They'll just naturally leave without tons of effort or tons of heartache or tons of hurting. Okay, get in right alignment. That's your business. That's your first priority. Okay, so that's a very simple parasite cleanse, Sylvia. Over a 21-day period, you could do 5 or 6, 8 afternoons that from lunchtime on, you just do watermelon and then you do a light meal at night. And the next day you go back to eating how you eat. That can help to clean out the digestive system so that if there are worms there, they're not hiding. The cat's claw, 1 to 2 dropperfuls for, a couple times a day for 21 days. Add lots of dates into your diet, add cherries into your diet, add papaya seeds. If you can get a hold of papaya seeds, those can all be really helpful. Now, there's lots of really funky things. You know how everything else in the world has been hijacked? A lot of parasite cleanses that you buy in the health food store, they've also been hijacked. because a lot of them have things like Cascara sagrada in them, which is really, really harmful to your digestive system. A lot of them have wormwood. And if you've ever seen how wormwood embeds into the tissues, that's another piece that we don't want to do. Why would we want to kill the host when we're trying to get rid of the parasites? We don't have to kill or harm the host to get rid of those parasites. Okay, so just take a look at whatever you're attracted to and go with that as best you can. But watch for, pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceutical cleanses that are all about virus, guess what they have in them? A whole bunch of energy of parasitic peace. So they have all sorts of energy to them that say, you have to do everything that you can do to keep this body alive, including harm it if necessary. That's so counterintuitive to me. So I've already given you some of the pieces that I encourage. And sometimes, you know what? The medical medium piece is important because it cleans up your body to a really deep place. It takes a while to get to all those layers. Do you know what happens to most clients when they go through the process that I encourage, the protocols? They get to a point where they're feeling really good and then it hits them. Ugh, I'm so sick. What is going on? It's like I have food poisoning and all I ate was raw food, fruits and vegetables today. How do I have food poisoning? I'm like, well, for one, E. coli comes in on leafy greens. It's not just because of those other foods, but it's generally not that they ate something. It's a pocket of parasitic energy, E. coli, C. diff, those type of bacteria that all of a sudden the body has gotten to, and it opened it up and it's now in your digestive system. This really, really old E. coli that you got when you were like 5 years old and you were sick for a couple days. It hit out. So all of a sudden you get to open it up and you get to clean it up because you just hit it hard with a cat's claw and you got rid of it again. Okay, that's just what I've experienced with thousands of people. Now, can you do it without that? You bet. Put it in the purification space. I believe in energy so strongly that I have experimented with it with individuals. I've watched people bring their parasitic level, the Epstein-Barr, the bacteria, the worms, all of it to nothing in a couple months. But you know what they did? They cleansed energetically. They cleansed emotionally and mentally. They didn't leave it to just the physical cleanup. So it's up to you how you do it. Maybe just putting it in the purification space and believing that that's enough will be enough. And you have to check that out. So it's not like I think my way is the only way. I've just watched a lot of individuals work with the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical in a way that they were actually able to avoid picking up those parasitic elements again. Because we can't just look after the symptoms, can we? If we look after just the symptoms, what happens? We're still vulnerable and susceptible. So we get to the actual reason that we have an accumulation of parasitic elements in our physical and mental and emotional and spiritual bodies. Get to the foundation and create a solid foundation for yourself so you're not vulnerable to those things. Maybe that's closing the dragon gates. I don't know. But that's a way that you can physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually do it. Now, okay. Yes, thank you. Morgellons is exactly that. It has a biological factor and a mechanical factor, and it has the ability to reproduce. A lot of people think it comes from the sky, and then it can get passed from person to person. It's a little sketchy because I know individuals that end up with Morgellons that they lose their homes and then they go and live in hotels and sit in hotel lobbies and stuff. And some of that parasitic activity can be outside of the body for a little while. So you can sit where someone else has been sitting, Most individuals with Morgellons have enough, I'm not going to say most, some of them have enough respect that they keep their bodies covered, but not necessarily. And it embeds underneath the surface of the skin and causes lesions and sores. And it's really hard to get rid of unless you work with the energetics of it. Because even that mechanical, how does something work mechanically in your body? It works off energy. Do you think it works off all energy or just the energy that aligns with it? If you have victim mentality, you will be running energy that totally aligns with Morgellons or with those other mechanical pieces. So show me how I do victim and let's get rid of it. A light meal after watermelon and dates for the afternoon, Sylvia, a couple potatoes, but mostly greens, fresh salads, lots of onions and green onions and lots of herbs, basil and mint and all of those things. Cucumbers, tomatoes, all of those would be a light meal, plus maybe a potato or so if you needed it. But if you eat enough watermelon in a day, you're going to feel full. Not satisfied probably, but full. So play with it. See how it works for you, okay? The mental ones come up, right? If you are looking for someone to save you, what are you susceptible to? Being controlled. If you think you need saved, that's a super big key to being a victim. And if you think you need saved, you're susceptible to things like all the mental viruses that are out there. Now, one other thing that I think is a virus or a parasitic piece, thoughts, right? Jacqueline calls it science of images. Everything is projecting thought at us, and very few of them are true. This many actually, but you'd have to prove that to yourself. Those are parasitic pieces, aren't they? All those thoughts that you're carrying around or that you're believing are true because somebody told you, or because someone you trusted told you, or because you saw it in some documentary that seemed like it was pretty solid, or because you were listening to some music that had that embedded in it, or because you read some book that had been completely hijacked and took it as, at this moment, truth. Those are parasitic. So when you're playing with those thoughts, you're allowing yourself to be controlled by thoughts that didn't come from you. So to me, thoughts are parasitic. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm too young. I'm too old. I can't get it right. I'm never going to have enough money. I'm always going to have to struggle. I'm going to, struggle my whole life and then die. I can't, my health is not good. I don't feel a connection to God, or I don't feel a connection to source, or how come I never feel source, or all of it. It's all parasitic. And it feeds off you, and it creates fear, and then fear in turn feeds the physical parasitic aspect, and then fear in you, what? It actually causes us as parents to pass that onto our children without even knowing that that's what we're doing, or onto our friends, or onto whatever. So thoughts are parasitic. That's a huge piece. And the more thoughts that you believe, the more susceptible you are to any other mental parasitic pieces that come in, any kind of mind control stuff, because you're believing, one, that you're not powerful, If I believe that I'm not good enough, but I want to be good enough, what am I doing? I'm at war. I have two opposing thoughts running in my head. So I'm at war. And what does war cause? It causes victim energy on both sides, whether you're the winner or you're the loser. Both sides are victim. And guess what? Victims are the most aggressive individuals in the world. So you might want to use something physically to get rid of those parasitic energies. And you might just want to sit and do reawaken every freaking day. Because what's that going to do? It's going to grow. It's going to cause the love to be so freaking full and recognized that it pushes out the parasitic energies. There's ways to do it, all sorts of ways to do it. I've seen lots of techniques, but most of them are hijacked because they're only dealing with the symptoms. They're not dealing with the root issue. Another reason that I use the medical medium information. Now, you all know that I don't use it purely because I think everyone is different. And I think it's important for people to listen. But what do? When we do those protocols, we're getting rid of the accumulation, but we're getting to the reason we have the accumulation in the first place. What good is getting rid of the accumulation if there's something creating more and more and more and more accumulation all the time? What good is that? Okay, so I come and I help you do a clean sweep of your house. Okay, a total clean sweep of your house. And then guess what? Your neighbors come and dump all their garbage back in the middle of your house. And you try and rearrange it because you want to be able to walk from one side of the house to the other. And I come and I do a clean sweep of your house again. But then the neighbors, they keep dumping garbage in the middle of your house. And you rearrange it again. That's called insanity. But what if I sit at the front door where the neighbor comes in and I say, no, I don't care where you put that, but not here. Now I've just dealt with the reason that there's accumulation in the first place. Or you have, because you sat at the front door, you created a healthy boundary. In that moment, now there's no more accumulation. Now I can come in and help you do a clean sweep. And guess what? It'll probably last for a few years. There might be other ways that accumulation sneaks in, but it'll be dealt with, at least the biggest part. And then you can see where the accumulation is coming from, and you can say no to those as well. Thoughts are a huge, huge contributing factor to accumulation. So we deal with it here. We deal with it at the base, the foundation of ourselves. Okay. It's always going to be up to you, and your personal instructions will give you information the more you work with all of it. Exactly, Kenai. Actual parasites are things such as Ebola. Then there's parasitic things like bacteria, viruses, worms. Yes. In this world, right? Because we're dropping, who knows what world we live in. That's why I chose the picture I did to share today in the feed, because there's the world and then there's the outside expression of all this parasitic stuff. The inside world is beautiful. And it could be expressed outwardly if we didn't have all this parasitic energy in the way, all this accumulation in the way. But we don't see that beauty outside because of everything that's in the way. In this world, in the world where we're talking about health and physiological stuff, parasites are going to kill you, or you're going to kill them in a short period of time. But all these other things, they're parasitic. Absolutely. I have seen a case of Ascaris, and they're real aggressive. They're real aggressive. but they can be treated like any other worms. And sometimes you have to get intense and then clean it up. So if you know me, you're going to find out that I never say no to anything pharmaceutical, if that's what we need. But then I remind everyone that you have to clean up the energy of what you just put in, because that energy isn't just going to deal with the issue. It's also going to harm this gold frequency, because pharmaceuticals aren't from a gold frequency at all. But yes, sometimes they help us to get rid of something that's really aggressive, and then we can carry on and clean up from there. That's why when individuals were having difficulty with the virus of this recent past, I did recommend to a few people to use chlorine dioxide. Okay, that was going around all over the place, but it's really harsh. So then there's some things that you have to look after and clean up after the fact. That is something that you can use for biological parasitic pieces like viruses and bacteria and funguses and worms, but it's really harsh, and then you need to clean up after that. Whether it's physically or energetically, emotionally, mentally, all of it. You just need to look after the host afterwards. Okay. Wormwood isn't recommended because wormwood, the makeup of wormwood, especially in a dried form, it's like these little tiny barbs. So it kills worms, but it embeds in the tissue and can cause little tiny pieces that can cause your body to have a very low grade infection. And sometimes it can take the body quite a while to release those cells or to release those barbed pieces of wormwood. Some people say the energy of the wormwood is like that, even if it's in a liquid. I don't know if I believe that. I think you'd have to check in and see what it feels like to you. But do you know what one of my favorite ones is for just worms? If you want, cloves. Clove tea or ground up cloves that you put in little capsules. Do those for 21 days if you want. That's an excellent worming protocol. It's not going to get to the herpetic viruses though. Those are the ones that embed in the cells. And when the herpetic virus dies, so does the cell die. That's why they say everybody has autoimmune, because they see so many human cells in the bloodstream that are dead. Well, it's because the immune system is getting rid of the herpetic virus, and they're not looking for those herpetic viruses. They just see the human cells that are dead, and there's a very high percentage. So they say the body is attacking itself. The systems are parasitic as well. Okay, so I get it. We have to back ourselves out of those parasitic environments so that we're not running that parasitic energy anymore. That's why wormwood it's harmful. It's harmful to the host as well. We're looking for things that aren't going to be harmful to the host to the best of our ability. And some of us don't have 2 years to clean up all those herpetic viruses physically. So that's why we bring in the energetic piece. That's why we get rid of the victim mentality piece. That's why we play with ourselves as a holistic being. Mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And then we get to deal with all this parasitic energy that we don't have to play with anymore. Okay. Did I get everybody's questions? I think I did. I was watching. Okay. Whew. Just blowing it out here. Does anybody have any questions based on what I've shared at this point? Okay, go ahead, Sylvia. Speak it up.
I just wanted to know about the physical cleanse again. My brain isn't holding information all that well today. So would the cleanse be something like the physical cleanse? Would that be something like like you said, an afternoon, like 3 or 4 afternoons a week, or would you do it like in a row, or would you do like a whole month of cleanse? I guess it depends on my body, right? If what my body wants to do.
It does depend on your body, but I would try and do cat's claw. 1 to 2 dropperfuls twice a day for minimum 21 days.
Okay, where would I get that? I'm gonna check to see if the health, I've got to go to the health food store today, so I was gonna check and see if they have it. But if they don't, where would I get it from?
You might try Vitacost.
Okay, that was, yeah, I was gonna check with, that's right, they keep sending me emails.
A couple of my favorite brands are Hawaii Farm and blanking now. Nature's Answer. I don't think they have alcohol-free cat's claw. And then dang, I have to look it up real quick.
Okay. Okay, that would probably be the easiest, doing the cat's claw for the 21 days and then adding in the fruits and vegetables as my body
Yes,
requires it.
that's where you can do a watermelon cleanse.
Because I got lots of watermelon right now.
Right? So you can do that for 3 or 4 or 5 afternoons over a period of 21 days. It doesn't have to be per week. It can be over a period of 21 days. Or you can have an afternoon where you eat 20 dates or 30 dates. Or you can have an afternoon where you just do apples. Okay.
Okay.
Systems are paralytic instead of parasitic. Absolutely, Maureen. They're paralytic too because they paralyze us with the amount of fear that they push at us. It's quite entertaining. Okay. Who has something that they think is parasitic that I didn't mention yet? Does Amazon or does Vimergy have cat's claw too? That's alcohol free, Courtney? Yes, so Vimergy is another brand. It's just super expensive when you're in Canada. That's why I use the Hawaii Farm, or why is that escaping me today? Okay. Okay, so Karen Lee, I want you to check in with that. Benzodiazole is a pharmaceutical. It is a pharmaceutical, so you need to check in with your body. Is it going to get rid of the parasitic, the biological parasitic thing? And is it going to harm the host? That's a thing I'm looking at. And ivermectin is another one of those things. You know, it's been used for years and years and years for parasites in humans and animals, but it harms the host. So you have to be willing to clean it up.
Good to know. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. And any pharmaceutical is going to have that kind of energy. Any pharmaceutical. And so you have to check it out with your body. It's the same with chlorine dioxide. It can be perfect for getting rid of biological, physical things. It's just that it can be really hard. Oh, so Nature's Answer does have cat's claw, Hawaii Farm. Oh, here it is, Herb Farm. So that's the other brand I really like. And you're looking for an alcohol-free Herb Farm, HERBPHARM. Thank you for hanging with me while I sorted out what brands are great. But you are looking for alcohol-free, because what does alcohol do? Alcohol is parasitic. Look at the foods that are parasitic. You've got processed foods, you've got alcohol, you've got nicotine, you've got any of the harder drugs, you've got sugar that is completely parasitic. What? So you've got all of these, it's part of the food system. It's just part of the food system, which is parasitic. Okay. Yeah, Hawaii Farm, PHARM. Okay, Anne Marie, questions about parasites or?
Yeah, thanks. I just had an easy one. I went to go buy cat's claw yesterday and they only had the St. Francis alcohol one, so I didn't buy it. But if I can find it in capsule, I wondered what your thoughts were on that.
So capsule can be great, but the challenge with the capsules is it's generally the strength of it has decreased significantly. So if you can do something like make a tea out of it to get as much out of it, but generally capsules have been sitting on the shelf for so long that the efficiency is less. That's the challenge with it. And can you still do it that way? Yes, but you just have to take more. So for every dropper full of a cat's claw tincture, you're looking at 3 to 4 capsules of dried. And some brands are going to be more fresh than others. Let your body move you towards the one that's right for you.
Thank you.
Yes, Kenai, chlorine dioxide is MMS. Okay. Chlorine dioxide, it's cool, actually. It has the ability to neutralize a lot of things too. So some people are using it to neutralize spike proteins. Are spike proteins parasitic? Yes, they actually are. And do you know what my favorite thing for those are? Thyme tea. The herb thyme. That helps us to neutralize them. And the other thing is an ionic zinc sulfate that doesn't have any alcohol in it or any citric acid in it, because it also helps to regulate in the body and keep those spike proteins from getting out of hand. Okay. Spike proteins will fill up an area until it causes damage. They don't come out of the receptors really easy. So we want to make sure that we look after that. So again, we're back in the technical stuff and we want to do some of that, right? But it's still accumulation. If you are dealing with just the accumulation and managing the symptoms without getting to the reason that that accumulation is happening in the first place, you might not be as effective as you'd like to be. Okay, so just energetically, we want to deal with that parasitic energy, that victim mentality. Okay, Maureen. Store-bought kombucha parasitic. Was that your question?
No, I have something else that I wanted to speak to,
Bring-
but
bring
it is a
that-
question. Yeah.
Bring that one up first.
This
Share.
one?
Yep.
It's to speak to what you just said, remembering the energetic part. And what came up for me is the parasitic system of the habits that we keep engaging in that aren't serving freedom and clarity. Like, for instance, like the physical habits, the eating habits, like drinking wine, drinking alcohol, or eating more than we need to eat. It brought me back to those habits where there's an awareness that it's really not serving, but there's still compulsion. So beyond the psychological, beyond the emotional, beyond all that stuff, deep down is another system. When you spoke about sitting at the door and saying no, that's when it came up for me really clearly. It was like sitting at the door and saying, no, I'm not going to invite more accumulation, more garbage in to the space I'm trying to clear. Why am I inviting more garbage into the space I'm trying to clear? I don't care if it is healthy versions of food. If I don't need it, I don't need to invite it in. It's just more stuff, more stuff. So that's what came up for me when you said that. I was like, whoa, bingo.
How perfect, because if there's a whole bunch of accumulation in your body or in your environment, you know, if you have so many people in your life, you can't keep track of their birthdays, you might have a parasitic individual or two there because you don't even recognize it because there's so many people. If you have so much stuff in your spare room that you don't even realize there's termites in there, how are you going to deal with it? If you have so much toxicity in your physical body, how do you even know whether you're getting rid of those parasitic, biological parasitic pieces? If you have so many minds in your thoughts in your mind, let's get that straight. If you have so many thoughts in your mind, how do you know which ones are toxic? How can you even tell? That's why we create space. So then you can see, oh, that one felt really crappy. That one might be parasitic, right? And most of you have already dropped out of most of the systems unless you're still rejecting in any way. You can't drop out by rejecting. You can't drop out of the system if you're rejecting. But we drop these pieces and a lot of the times the systems fall away, right? And that's exactly it, Maureen. Thank you.
Thank you.
And store-bought kombucha, is it parasitic? Well, I tell you what, some foods that are fermented have bacteria of death. Some foods have bacteria of life. What would you rather be ingesting if you are wanting to live life? Kombucha has the bacteria of death. Sorry.
Thank you.
If you have one every once in a while, I don't think it's going to kill you. But overall, what's accumulating? I want the bacteria of life in my body. Now, do we need any of those? Not a lot. Not a lot, if any. But there's some prebiotics that I still feel are beneficial, and diversity is what's really important to me, because what is the law of nature? The law of nature is diversity. So I don't need a whole bunch of candida. But guess what? Candida isn't parasitic. It's trying to protect you the whole time. If the other parasitic properties increase, like viruses and bacteria, and they get out of hand, guess what candida does? It tries to get ahead of it and contain it and block it. So everybody trying to get rid of candida is actually opening the door for more parasitic action and accumulation. So diversity is important to me. So I'm looking for like wild things that I can eat without doing much more than a light rinse or eating directly. Now I'm looking for places that are a little more pristine so that I can lick the aspen bark or the birch bark, because all that white powdery stuff, that's prebiotic. That's diversity. Believe it or not, that's how I encourage a lot of people to get diversity, because they don't have other ways to do it.
So may I ask you a question? So are you saying that fermented foods in general or probiotics are bacteria of death?
Well, probiotics are not the bacteria of death, but they are very low in diversity. So do you really want to have 10 different bacteria in your body in a really huge way? Or do you want to have 1,200 bacteria in your body that are all about nature's diversity in a really, really tiny, tiny, tiny way, where they stay in the digestive system and support you? I don't think we have to have viruses.
Right.
Right.
Can you post a list by any chance of different places where we might find that diversity? Like,
I'll do a thing in the health module feed. Okay.
thank you. Thank
and
you.
I'll start sharing a list of different things where you can gather diversity.
Thank you so much.
I like the herb farm, Sylvia. I like Nature's Answer, but I really like Herb Farm. That's one of my favorites. Okay, as long as it's alcohol free. And again, if Imergy is what you have, use it because it's great too. It's just there's an energy sometimes that I pick up on that I move towards versus purity and all that kind of thing. There's an energy that I really like to gravitate towards. Okay, we hit it hard and fast. Anybody have last burning question before we jump off here and go do interdimensionality exit that we've been already doing for months? Okay, if you do have more questions, I'm going to post this in the sessions in the health modules so you can put questions in the feed, in the activity feed, in that health space, okay? I'm not going to monitor that all the time, but guess what? I have a few others that are going to help me keep up to that if you do have questions. I'm happy to answer from my perspective, but you can count on it being holistic. Mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical, because I don't just work in the physical. I just can't. It's not enough of what we are. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Take amazing care and no more. We just did a whole bunch of parasitic dropping here. We did it really fast and really hard. So let's see where it takes us. Okay. Okay. Bye for now.
Bye.